The Russo-Japanese War wasn't just a regional conflict, it was a brutal preview of modern warfare. A clash that would send shockwaves across the globe. As hostilities erupted, Japan quickly proved its mettle. On the battlefields of Manchuria, Japanese forces displayed superior strategy, discipline, and coordination. They were organized, motivated, and fighting on familiar terrain. In contrast, the mighty Russian Empire was a giant struggling to find its footing. Its supply lines were stretched thousands of miles across Siberia, a logistical nightmare. Leadership was often incompetent, riddled with political appointees who underestimated their opponent, and their military assumptions were dangerously outdated. They were fighting a 20th century war with 19th century tactics. Major land battles, like the grueling siege of Port Arthur and the massive clash at Mukden, became meat grinders that drained Russia's manpower and morale. These engagements were horrific, involving trenches, machine guns, and heavy artillery on a scale never before seen. Japan paid a heavy price in blood for every victory, but Russia was bleeding even more, both on the front lines and at home, where discontent was brewing. But as devastating as the land war was, the decisive blow, the moment that would truly define the outcome of this conflict, was yet to come. And it would happen not on the dusty plains of Manchuria, but on the open sea. In a desperate gamble to turn the tide, Tsar Nicholas II made a monumental decision. He ordered the Russian Baltic Fleet, the pride of his navy, to sail halfway around the world to relieve the besieged Port Arthur and crush the Japanese fleet. This was an epic undertaking, a journey of over 18,000 nautical miles that would take more than 7 months. The fleet was a formidable sight, a collection of powerful battleships and cruisers. The world watched, with most experts assuming that Russia's sheer naval tonnage and the weight of its European prestige would inevitably overwhelm the upstart Japanese navy. The thinking was simple: bigger is better. Russia believed its heavy hitters would sail into the east, line up, and pound the smaller Japanese ships into submission. They couldn't have been more wrong. The Japanese navy, under the brilliant command of Admiral Togo Heihachiro, was waiting. They weren't just waiting. They had been preparing, drilling, and strategizing for this very moment. They had faster ships, better trained gunners, and a revolutionary tactical mindset. While the Russian fleet was exhausted, its hulls fouled from the long voyage and its crews demoralized, the Japanese were fresh, disciplined, and operating in their home waters. The stage was set for one of the most decisive naval battles in all of human history. In May 1905, as the Russian fleet entered the Tsushima Strait between Korea and Japan, Admiral Togo executed a daring and now famous maneuver. He ordered his fleet to cross the T, a classic naval tactic that allows a fleet to bring all its guns to bear on the enemy's lead ships, while the enemy can only fire its forward-facing guns. It was risky, exposing his flagship to concentrated fire, but it worked perfectly. The Japanese gunnery was terrifyingly accurate. They used new, high-explosive shells that tore through the Russian ships, setting them ablaze. The Russian fleet, strung out and poorly commanded, descended into chaos. Within hours, the battle turned into a slaughter. The annihilation was almost total. Of the 38 Russian ships that entered the strait, 21 were sunk, 7 were captured, and 6 were interned in neutral ports. Only a handful managed to escape. The Japanese lost just 3 torpedo boats. The Baltic fleet had ceased to exist. The news of the Battle of Tsushima stunned the world. It was an unbelievable David and Goliath victory. A non-Western nation had not just defeated a major European power, it had utterly humiliated it. The defeat shattered Russia's will to fight. Exhausted, bankrupt, and facing a full-blown revolution, at home, partly fueled by the disastrous war, Tsar Nicholas II had no choice but to sue for peace. The resulting Treaty of Portsmouth, mediated by US President Theodore Roosevelt, was a landmark moment. It officially recognized Japan's dominance over Korea and its significant territorial gains in Manchuria. For Russia, it was a national disgrace that directly contributed to the 1905 revolution, a dress rehearsal for the larger upheaval that would topple the Tsarist regime a decade later. For Japan, it was a triumphant entry onto the world stage as a major imperial power. The Russo-Japanese War redrew the map of Asia, and fundamentally shifted the global balance of power. The old world order was cracking, and the tremors from this distant war would be felt for decades to come. Thanks for watching. And if you found this piece of history fascinating, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the battles that changed our world.